Okay, folks, we are all ready to go. Seeing that it is 6:34 on January 14th, 2025, and that we have a quorum both here with us as well as some members who are remote. I'd like to call to order this evening's Wildwood SBA School Building Committee. Looking for a call to order. So roll call, please, Julie.
I'm on the call, Dr. Bren. Diane Allen,
Here remotely.
Greg Bendel, Kate Bissell,
Kate is not here tonight.
Glenn Brand,
Here.
Kevin Kyra, Michael Camosio,
Here.
Justin Couchet,
Here.
Marianne Galezzo,
Here.
Nicholas Golden,
Here.
Christine Holleran,
Here.
John Holloway, Dennis Kelly,
Here.
Paul Melorani,
Here.
Craig Miner,
Here.
Christine Murray,
Christine is not here this evening.
Judy O'Connell,
Here.
Christine Pendergast,
Here.
David Ragsdale,
Here.
Paul Ruggiero,
Here.
Stacy Scott,
Here.
Eric Schlegel,
Here.
Stephen Turner,
Here.
and myself, Vivian Verbedian, present. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thank you, Vivian. Item number 2 tonight is the approval of minutes. This is for our meeting. Looking for a motion to approve tonight.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, Dr. Brand.
Yes.
This is Diane Allen, and at the minutes, these minutes here, you have me as present. I did not attend the meeting.
Speaker one.
I did not attend that meeting, but it shows me as being present. So that correction.
Yep, and we lost the speaker.
It knows when you're leaving.
Yeah, I was following you.
It was sad.
Diane, could you say something remotely, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
We're not getting.
The owl's eyes are gone. Yeah, the owl's
We could,
I can
can you hear me?
Yes,
I
yes.
can hear virtually.
Yeah, we could hear, everyone virtually can hear Diane. And if you could hear me, she stated that in the meeting minutes,
Gee, what's happening here?
Diane,
Yes.
I don't
What
think
did
they
it-
could hear us.
Or what turned it
Oh.
on?
Oh.
You did.
Reset it.
It's on.
It's smacked.
It's got power source.
Lights are not on. You need this. Yeah.
You want me to? What you're doing? Reset it.
I'll go get this one foil. Yeah.
Can't hurt.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I did nothing. I didn't even.
Where's the
I think-
owl menu?
Diane, I think everyone virtually can hear us.
Audio or
The
video?
people in the room can't hear us.
Oh, okay.
They're trying
Yeah,
to fix
they
the
just put it
owl.
in the chat that they
doesn't
have an
show
issue.
Okay. I hear you.
Stephen, can you reboot that owl? Because it would show up.
It really wasn't rebooting for me, to be honest.
Can you just
Yep.
unplug it?
Yep. Owl off.
Wake up.
I'll give it coffee. Hot to work, not to read my coffee back.
It'll pop up here when it does. Mhm.
It's there. Yep, this one on.
It doesn't have power on.
Good. So it is plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
Audio, you can hear you in the room, you can't hear us on Zoom. Audio is coming through Zoom. Thanks, Michael. This is the audio is coming through? Mhm.
Can we have a meeting with just audio?
Michael's laughing at us. We can see
Oh,
that.
okay, eyes are back. But it's doing that thing where it's searching for something. Well, the blue light down here is not on.
Right.
It's not a.
No, there's a little blue light that's supposed to be here.
So you cannot hear the people remotely?
But the microphone on the laptop.
Not yet, Diane.
Okay, thank you, Vivian.
You're welcome.
You can hear us, but we can't hear you, just so you know, Diane.
Okay.
You thought I was kidding? I was not joking. I was not expecting that. Lights back on. Here we go. Good, it's coming up. It just needed to.
All right, I'm not.
You touched nothing. You can't get out of your seat, you can't move. Yeah, I'm not saying.
Diane, can you speak?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, the comment that I made was that in the minutes of the meeting on the December 17th, you have me as being present. I was not at that meeting, so if that correction could be made, I was absent from that meeting.
Thank you, Diane, for clarifying that. Any other discussion relative to item number 2, which is the approval of minutes for December 17th? Okay. We're good? You think we're good? Okay. Then with that, we have motion to second, roll call, please.
Diane Allen,
Yes. Oh, well,
Glenn
I should
Brandt?
abstain. I should abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay, thank you. Glenn Brand,
Yes.
Michael Camosio,
Yes.
Justin Couche,
Yes.
Mary Ann Galezzo,
Yes.
Nick Golden,
Yes.
Christine Holleran,
Yes.
Dennis Kelly,
Yes.
Paul Melorani,
Yes.
Greg Minor,
Yes.
Judy O'Connell,
Abstain.
Christine Pendergast,
Yes.
David Ragsdale,
Abstain.
Paul Ruggiero,
Yes.
Stacy Scott,
Yes.
Eric Schlegel,
Yes.
Stephen Turner,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Great, thank you, everyone. Item number 3 tonight is approval of invoices. We have specifically warrant number 20A and warrant number 20B. Julie?
Yes, good evening. Warrant article number 20A for SMMA's basic OPM services in the amount of $3,750. All activities for the month of December are listed below. Next, we have warrant article 20B for door and rears basic services in the amount of $53,900. In addition, we have their designer amendment 3 for site survey in the amount of $5,087.50. Next, we have Doran Whittier Architects Design Amendment 3 for geotechnical engineering in the amount of $22,242. Following that is Doran Whittier's Designer Amendment 3 for traffic studies in the amount of $13,200. And finally, a reimbursement for printing, cutting, and shrinking for the water bills as performed by Shawsheen Tech via Michael Camosio in the amount of $625. Total warrant article in the amount of $95,054.50. Dennis Kelly with the recommendation from the Finance Working Group.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 28 in the amount of $3,750 for SMMA.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second, any discussion?
Discussion. Why is there a committee member extending himself to pay any fees related to this project at all, particularly Mike Comosio?
That would be in warrant article 20B, so.
Why?
Right, so,
Like, why is there not a direct bill relationship?
Say again?
Something like, why is there not a direct bill?
Yeah, like why isn't SMA picking up that or?
so Michael had a contact at Shawsheen Tech. And so he offered to deliver, the proof to them and have them print in color, cut, and then bind them. And, so he wrote the check and we offered to reimburse him for that check.
I appreciate that, Michael, but I'm not sure that we should be having, committee people doing that on their own. That's just me.
I was comfortable doing this to make sure it happened, get the payment before the holiday so they could print this right after, and then they printed it on January 2nd. If we want to find another way in the future, that's fine too. Just wanted to make sure this insert made it and that we got that check to the school on time.
Yeah, and thank you for that comment, Paul. But it was also part of the PR working group. And it was part of our role and responsibility to make sure that those inserts were done timely. So given the holiday, we did do so. And Michael, having the contact, was gracious enough to take it to Shawsheen and pick it up, as well as front the cost for it.
I appreciate that, but we are paying companies here to work for us. We're paying them a great deal of money. I don't see why a check should have been cut like immediately for that by some of the people in this.
Thank you. And thank you, Michael, on behalf of the committee, but to the point that Paul's raised, going forward, is there another opportunity? Sorry.
We lost the hour.
Is that a question for me? Yes, we can get the address information and make sure it gets to Tom and Graphic Arts. So yes, there could be a way.
Any other discussion on warrant 20A, which we are still on? We have a motion. You had a second, correct?
We did.
Okay. If there is no other discussion, looking for a roll call vote.
Vivian?
Absolutely. Diane Allen,
Yes.
Glenn Brand,
Yes.
Michael Comosio,
Yes.
Justin Couche,
Yes.
Mary Ann Galezzo,
Yes.
Nicholas Golden,
Yes.
Christine Holleran,
Yes.
Dennis Kelly,
Yeah.
Paul Melorani,
Yes.
Craig Minor,
Yes.
Judy O'Connell,
Yes.
Christine Pendergast,
Yes.
David Ragsdale,
Yes.
Paul Ruggiero,
Yes.
Stacy Scott,
Yes.
Eric Schlegel,
Yes.
Stephen Turner,
Yes.
and myself, yes. The motion carries.
Thank you. Warrant number 20B.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 20B in the amount of $95,054.50.
Seconded.
The motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please, Vivian.
Diane Allen,
Yes.
Glenn Brand,
Yes.
Michael Comosio,
Yes.
Justin Couche,
Yes.
Mary Ann Galezzo,
Yes.
Nicholas Golden,
Yes.
Christine Holleran,
Yes.
Dennis Kelly,
Yes.
Paul Melorani,
Yes.
Craig Minor,
Yes.
Judy O'Connell,
Yes.
Christine Pendergast,
Yes.
David Ragsdale,
Yes.
Paul Ruggiero,
Yes.
Stacy Scott,
Yes.
Eric Schlegel,
Yes.
Stephen Turner,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to item number 4, which is a design update. Specifically, Dorn Whittier and Ryan will take us through a detailed update on the floor plan that continues to have a lot of attention with members of the administrative team and the design team, and then project aesthetics, some of the follow-up from our last meeting. So with that, Ron.
Thank you, Dr. Brand. So we've been using the district leadership team as a sounding board as we're making adjustments to the floor plan. I think we're moving in the right direction with any tweaks that we're making. This chart was shared at our last meeting to give you an update on where the variations are in the program. We continue to look at moving the teacher collaboration spaces into the center of the building. We talked a little about that last time. And then with that, we actually looked at combining, because instead of having 1 on the first floor, 2 on the second floor, 3 on the third floor to align with the different grade groupings, we have centralized them to have 2 on each floor because of the number of staff on the first floor. And then with that, we also looked at combining the teacher collaboration spaces so that it's a larger space. And it allowed for some other adjustments in the plan, which we'll look at when we look at the floor plan itself. So that was a change that's happened since last time. We looked at moving the art classroom to the second floor. So we made that change. In admin and guidance, there were 2 staff members that we didn't have listed in the floor, in the space summary for MSBA. That's the literacy coordinator and the STEM coordinator. So we've added them into the space summary so that they are accounted for in the square footage under admin and guidance. And then the other changes were that there was a reduction in the number of wellness rooms by combining the teacher collaboration rooms. If you recall, each teacher collaboration space had a wellness room associated with it. And so by combining them, we were able to reduce the wellness rooms to 1 per floor. So instead of 6, we have 3, which is nice too, because those were considered non-reimbursable by MSBA. So overall, when we made all of these changes, there was approximately 90 square foot reduction in the overall square footage. So we dropped just slightly, but we're continuing to make these tweaks to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And just as a reminder, the last column that shows the difference of square footage from where we are currently versus the MSBA guidelines, even though that's showing 55,560 gross square feet delta between the two, a portion of that is reimbursable by MSBA from their comments.
So Ron, for clarification, did we therefore increase our reimbursable allotment by making some of these adjustments?
So there's some reduction in the spaces that were not, but then the addition of the 2 spaces that were not in admin are probably almost a wash. Hard to know for sure until we go back to the MSBA, and they'll confirm what is and isn't reimbursable.
Okay.
Sorry, that was my question, was have you had that follow-up, the initial meeting where they were like, we think these spaces that are great to have are not necessarily reimbursable? So have you had that follow-up yet, or is that still?
That's part of when we go back to the MSBA with the submission.
Thank you.
We've submitted our material to them, expressing why we think some of those spaces should be reimbursed. We haven't got back. The next sit down we have with them on our next submission, we'll have that discussion with them on their reply to those things.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So let's just look at the floor plan and some of the changes. So as mentioned, in December, we shared that we had moved those teacher collaboration spaces into the center corridor. So you'll see here on the plan, this larger space here is the combined teacher collaboration space. So in this enlargement, this is that teacher collaboration room in the center on the first floor. On the second floor, again, you'll see this is the teacher collaboration space. Also on the second floor, we have that flexible art classroom. Initially, we had looked at putting it next to the teacher collaboration space, but then in thinking about aligning it with the STEM classroom, we actually moved it to be adjacent to the STEM classroom. That is where the health classroom was previously. And so we've moved the health classroom to just west of that stair. So it's still right in the center of the building. It's just moved over a few feet. And then on the third floor, teacher collaboration, again, centrally located. This has 3 grade groupings, so this nicely fits right in the center of those 3 grade groupings. So those were the big shifts. We're also making smaller tweaks, custodial closets, looking at duct chases, electrical. We next meeting will bring to the classrooms layouts and in those discussions that we've been having with the district leadership team to look at the layout of the classrooms and how those work. So we'll have more information on that at the next meeting. Any questions? So I'm going to keep moving
I
here.
have Diane Allen here. Since we're building the new town hall, we are going to have, the third floor is going to have a lot of these directors of all these different areas. Does that mean that some of them won't be there in the town hall, that they're going to be in this new school?
Diane's Glenn here. No, I can answer that. There's no shift in the allocation of staffing that was currently part of the plan for the school administration at the town hall. These are folks that we have spread out throughout the 3 schools, in particular the north and, or say, the Woburn. So we're still staying the course for what was planned for the town hall school administration. These are other staff that the district has that are currently housed in one of these school locations.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Grant.
Thank you, Diane. So now we're going to shift to the interior visioning exercise that was completed at the last meeting. Wanted to share the results of that. So the images that you see in vivid color, those were the ones that had the most preferred dots, if you will. The ones that are slightly faded are the ones that had that sort of, yes, we are interested, possibly. And then we looked at the notes to see where those notes and where that preference lied with those images. And then the ones that are washed out are the ones that showed a strong preference against, using those images as a guiding force for us to move forward. So, some of the things that we noted were natural materials, color within reason, views outside as well as between spaces, spaces that are not overwhelming, looking for opportunities for active and passive supervision, bright spaces, flexible spaces, the window seats, use of the nooks wherever they are available. And now this visioning exercise, they guide the design team as we work through the overall design aesthetics. So you'll see a little bit of how we use that in upcoming images, but this is where we ended the last meeting, was having this visioning exercise. So we'll take this information and we're using it as we develop the interior of the building. We wanted to touch on the inspiration for the project as well. It's something that we started looking at very early on. And we wanted to see how we can connect the building back to the community, because it's not just a foreign object placed here, it's part of the fabric of Wilmington. And so we thought we'd just talk about that a little bit today. So we did research, as I said, early on, and we came across the Baldwin tree. For those that are not familiar with it, the Baldwin apple tree has roots in Wilmington that go far back as 1740 and commemorated in 1895 with the monument in Wilmington. Inspiration came from the sprawling branches of the Baldwin apple tree, a symbol of Wilmington's history. Its roots sank deep into the earth, anchored it firmly, while its branches stretched wide, offering shelter, shade, and meeting place for all. The tree isn't just a part of history, however, it's a symbol of the heart of its residents, and that's the community that makes up Wilmington. So the Baldwin apple tree and the community it represents inspire the design, not just in form, but in spirit as well. And so we try to think about that as we're moving forward with all of the aesthetics and even the layout of the building. And when we think about the children that are moving through the school, we look at that through the eyes of growth, just similar to a tree. So we use the tree as a metaphor. The roots are a strong foundation. The school would be grounded in the values of curiosity and community. The foundation, like the tree's roots, would spread wide and deep, symbolizing the knowledge and support systems that anchor the children as they begin their educational journey. The trunk is a pillar of learning. Central multi-purpose spaces are the trunk of the school. These spaces are tall and strong, are the core where children and families can gather with teachers for assemblies, cultural events, and celebrations. It represents strength, stability, and shared purpose. The branches are a canopy of growth. The classroom wings extend like branches from the central core. Each classroom is designed to be modular and adaptive, filled with natural light and airflow. Extended learning areas and small group rooms foster an environment that encourages exploration and interaction. The leaves are the individual potential. The leaves, ever changing yet integral to the tree's life, symbolize the children themselves. Outdoor learning spaces, art walls, and play areas are created to nurture each child's unique creativity and curiosity. Each child can grow and flourish, much like the leaves transforming under the sun. And then shade, a place for all. Like the Baldwin tree, the school would offer shelter and inclusion. The design features communal spaces for the town, ensuring the school is not just for the children, but a space for everyone to come together, celebrating life, knowledge, and unity. And so the school is designed to emulate the tree's essence, where every child can feel rooted and free to grow. And so you'll see here, we have the floor plan and highlighting some of the aspects of the tree and how they relate back to the building and the layout. And now we're going to jump into exteriors. So, you know, we took a first pass at the massing and the exterior of the building, just to give you an idea of how we use the visioning exercise that we went through to take the themes that the group here has chosen and selected to guide us through the exterior aesthetics. So this is a southeast view of the main entry. These are marked with natural materials like mass timber and canopies, which we look to as protection for those coming into the building. You'll see here the rhythm of the windows provides natural light to all the spaces. The canopies provide shading opportunities for all that natural light that is coming in. We do have to control that. And so that's part of the building and design to do that from the exterior, not just the interior. Large openings at gathering spaces are inviting and bright. Canopies provide that shade to balance the daylight at the large openings and protection for students at drop-off locations. It's also a focal point, as this is one of the largest gathering spaces in the building. And then here in the southwest perspective, this is a view of the classroom wings. Here we're using masonry as the primary material for proposing it on the exterior. And that shows the strength of the core of these classroom wings and how the students would travel through the building. And just to touch on the exterior materials. So far what we're looking at, I just mentioned the masonry, that would be the base, that foundation.
With the darker color, we'll continue to use masonry as you move up through the academic wing and up through the building as well. We are working at some lighter colors with a little bit of speckle of color with the brick, and then potentially a metal banding at the top, just to give that lighter sense of material as you get to the top of the building. So these are just explorations that we're looking at, but we wanted to share with you, you know, where we're at with the aesthetics and where we're exploring and how we've gotten there. So that's what we agreed to do.
So Ronnie, quick thing, I don't mean today. Obviously from the storyboard, you guys have tried to apply what people feelings were and all the different options. When I think of the buildings Wilmington's been building, whether it's the high school or new town hall, there's like a classic look to them. And then when we look at this, it's not as quite as classic. We start off with the brick, then we go to other materials or different colors. And then I'm not a big fan of the wood, as I mentioned in the other ones, as longevity of the building, and I'm sure there's reasons. So to me, this doesn't make me feel like the buildings we've been building. It's definitely a stretch going in a different direction. And again, I appreciate the effort, and it is based off people's inputs. This doesn't jump out at me. I don't want to take anything away from the hard work you guys have put in. As something that represents Wilmington. That's just my personal thing.
Well, I was gonna say, I actually, respectfully disagree. I was very skeptical of a lot of like the Norwegian wood kind of spa vibes and some of the, initial imagery we were shown. But I think this actually gets to a really good place with it. I really like the wooden spires, but I actually would be curious about how the weathering and the maintenance of the wood long term. That is something I think we could talk about more. But I will also compliment whoever did the coloring in here. The hashing looks nice. So yeah, I would like to learn more about the wood pillars and how to maintain those long term.
I just wanted to say, I mean, obviously I know the tremendous amount of work that you have been putting into it. I think I'm leaning more in Dennis's category. I'm just struggling with, I like the mansard look that we have here, and I can see that the town hall is being, married with that, or it at least appears to be. It's still in development, but with Yentile, we've done a lot of wood on the outside. We've had vandalism there. We've had people wanting to carve their initials in the wood. We've seen weather patterns on it that, even it's still, a building in its infancy. It's just over 5 years old, and we've learned a lot from that. There's been a lot of maintenance that's had to go into those areas. I'm struggling a little bit with the sequence of kind of ad hoc green bricks throughout the bottom, like with different patterns that, I think everybody optically sees things differently, but I would be like, was that a mistake? Was that intended to be there? Is there some sort of a mathematical sequence similar to some of the sequencing of the tile that was done in the high school? I believe it was like a Fibonacci sequence or something of the sort. I also, I don't claim that this is my forte by any means, but I think of like snow loads and what, flat building surfaces look like, over time. And I understand the shading concept, but I think, I'd like in the Southwest perspective, when I saw the woodwork, to me, it looked like staging, construction staging, and that maybe it was just the image. I don't know if it's the next one. Oh, right there, yeah, to the upper right. I just don't, maybe it would look better once it's built, but to me, it looks like part of a construction phase, and that's still under development optically from sitting right here. And then, the other piece with the green, I understand some people may want to see that blue. I would like to see some of the blue and some of those features brought into the interior and kind of make it more a uniform color. And I'm struggling to see multiple colors, more than 3 colors, if you will, kind of added to the outside and with varying sequences. So just struggling to kind of tie it all together, but I'm not an architect, and that's why we have you. So to me, I don't see the direct correlation to mirroring the high school and the town hall. If that was the goal, I think this goes a little bit beyond that. So, but overall, thank you for everything that you've done to put it together.
So a couple things, and in some ways pieces of those things, but I do really like the idea of having some overhang for spaces, for the drop off, for the pickup, for those things. We struggle with some of our existing buildings where it's a door and there's no overhang, there's no place for the children on their way in, their way out, you know, so I think that concept I like a lot. I think the bottom of the east perspective one had a picture where the wood was just interior to it, not on the exterior. So if we could have the theme of wood and natural materials more on the interior spaces, yes, you've still got maintenance there, but it's a very different maintenance perspective. That one there on the right. So it's got a different type of material holding up the overhang, whatever form that is. I don't know if it's brick or steel or what, but the wood's on the interior. So I think that would be a way to meet that goal. I do like the overhang, and I get the idea of the green dots, because if you have a massive wall that's 25 feet tall, that's all one color, that would be difficult. My understanding of color and that thing was just not great, but I can get why maybe that's not the way to do what you're trying to do, to the point of doing something that's more of a vertical piece that would then either not necessarily mirror, but hearken towards these buildings. It could be a little bit too repetitive and people might not like it for that reason, but it might be a way to get the breakup of color that you're looking for, but still get to the idea that some people have raised about being in line with the existing buildings. But overall, I mean, it's really good to see this level of detail, and the visuals really do help, as opposed to floor plans, which are very useful for the interior spaces. This is certainly been helpful to see, and size and scale and such things. So thank you.
Are those steel columns with a wood finish on them, or are they entirely wood?
It could go either way right now. We've done it both ways with steel columns and a wood wrap, or we've done, just heavy timber. And so part of that's a pricing exercise you have to go through as well. And some of that overall, our thought process was trying to bring some of these design aspects from the exterior, like these tall kind of, mass timber framing would come inside as well. At least that's what we're thinking right now, preliminary, bringing that into the cafeteria. So some of the interior columns in there are going to also be wood, right? We've got some wood beams in there, and that's the space we're really kind of treat, because that's kind of right in the main lobby and the entrance. We're trying to limit, some of our money that's going in the budget towards those things to a specific area. It can be any material, right? This was our first pass at trying to look at a whole bunch of green, yellow, and blue dots about stuff that you guys liked. And some of the stuff that stood out, and we've had some of these little thumbnail clips next to it, because stuff that you guys picked out was a lot of those kind of timber columns holding up canopies. Canopies are really important, whether that's, wrapped in something else, we certainly can talk about, but canopies are something that MSBA is definitely interested in. Canopies are something we're definitely interested to be able to protect students outside when they're coming. This is all around the main entry. But there's certainly lots of conversations we can have on this. We limited ourselves in materials a lot from when we normally get out. You guys did a good job of trying to kind of hone us in and focus this in on classic architecture, right? Durable materials, right? All we're looking at is a couple different colors of brick and some metal panels, right? So the material palette's very limited. The color selection is somewhat limited, while we're looking at, the classic architecture that you've got in this building and also with your new projects. We are also cognizant of the fact that this is an elementary school for your youngest learners. And we are trying to look at it through that lens, right? The lens of a student coming to this building is completely different from the lens of some of your smallest learners. So we're trying to make that so it looks like it's more of a fun place for them to go, that they're living in every day. At the same time, we were trying to be somewhat muted in our expression of that on the exterior. So this was kind of that happy in between spot that we thought would be a good starting point to have a conversation with you. So this is always our hardest part, right? Is, right out of the box, trying to come up with something that, it's a community project. We're not focusing on just a design for one person. So we're trying to do our best to listen and take out, that common thread that we've heard. So if there's specific items in here that we can come to consensus on, that we like this, but we don't want this, and you guys need to move in a different direction, that's helpful to us. If it's, this isn't so bad, good first take, develop it a little further, bring it back to us. knowing that you have some concerns about the materiality of those columns. And some of the coloring that we're proposing at those color bands, we can take a look at that. If it's something that you guys say, you missed the barn here, don't have it, you gotta start and look at something else, that's valuable information to us. So this is our out of the box, and we appreciate the feedback you're giving, and that's what we're looking for, right? There's no hard feelings here for us. We're used to this stuff. This is your building, not our building. This is just our kind of interpretation of what we think we've heard.
Oh, yes. So I think I'm kind of Team Judy and Team Dennis also. Not crazy about the wood, especially on the outside. Maybe pre-K through fifth graders are little darlings, but there's gonna be a lot of kids hanging around that school outside after hours, and that wood will get carved up. It'll get vandalized. I wish we had done some visioning for the inspiration of this project. I get the tree and I get the Baldwin apple. But there's many things to consider in this town, the wildcats, the blue, all that stuff. If we're gonna have any color infused in this, I'm guessing that the green are the leaves of the tree. Is that what that is?
Good job.
Okay. But I think that if somebody driving through Wilmington Wildcat country and they know that everything here is blue and they're gonna see the green on that school, I don't know, to me, it seems a bit out of place. If we're gonna inject color into this project, I'd rather it be the color of the school system, the blue, the Wildcat blue.
It's either Navy or Columbia, just an FYI.
But and I appreciate that this is coming out of the gate. This is the first iteration of this. It's more classic than I thought it was going to be the first time drawings coming out. But I'll leave it at that right now.
I think Diane may have her hand up, I'm told.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go along with some of those comments, especially that Judy made. I'm not in favor of the wood columns. I don't see that anywhere in Wilmington. And thinking of me being active with the town hall, I was also thinking of the siding of the building, the material that we have here, and going into 3 different types. Maybe something more like what we did with the high school with just 2, rather than 3, and then, blue up at the top. I definitely agree taking the green color out and keeping our blue back in, but that entrance does not really appeal to me. And I don't feel that that approach of that front of that building represents what we're doing in Wilmington with some of our other buildings that we have. It just looks a little too modernistic. But I know this is our first crack at it, and you, the architects, are trying to get some input from us as to what would be best. But on this east perspective, that overhang roof with the wood just doesn't do it for me. That's it. Thank you.
Sure.
So can you take us back to the east perspective? It was the one that showed which had the wings of this, yeah, that one. So I noticed that there's 2 different treatments of kind of the set-in portions. I will say personally, I like the top one better. I like the uniform brick along the bottom. So I think that that was the one that kind of jumps out to me. I think I guess taking the building into kind of sections, I think if we could tweak the treatment along the top of that wing, and maybe it's bringing blue, maybe it's a more regular blue as opposed to some of the random green along that top, and maybe I don't know.
maybe it's not white, I don't know, I don't know that. But I do like, I like the brick and the white, like I like if I'm looking at that wing. I think the brick and the white and the windows set the way they are, I appreciate. I think the ribbon along the top was just slightly different. I think in a more, and made it seem like a little bit more classic. That might. I think that would be something I would be.
Would you, if they had the same brick at the top in a thinner stripe, so what they have at the bottom, the darker color, would that like create the uniformity around that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that might, yeah. So maybe, yeah, maybe.
Well, that's basically what we have here. There's a ribbon around the top that mirrors the bottom piece here, and it's a mansard roof. So it gives the hip roof kind of look to the street. I'm not saying that.
Interesting.
That's where like, sorry. Okay.
So I'm team timber, but I am with the maintenance piece of it. So let's bring that inside. Secondly, I think that we should consider that the majority of our buildings that have been erected in this town are of vintage, and that things like having a portico or a, what do you call it again? A hangover, overhang, is completely functional and very much needed. If we all think about coming to the schools to events, when you are outside waiting to enter the building and it's raining out, you're picking up your kids and you're waiting, it's raining, the sun is blaring and whatnot. There are so many times I can recall wishing that I was under a hangover overhang. So I think that we need to be forward thinking about that, and well, we may just need to get away from the has-been and what we need to be. So that's my thought. Yeah.
Sorry, I know I've already spoken, but the high school does have decent overhangs at those two entrances. And a little one at this one, so I think it's in line, so I think we have learned, as opposed to some of the buildings that were built in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, and I agree on the high school, but when you look at the front section there, it's 30 feet high, you're not gonna stop anywhere than 30 feet up. You know, so the one lower, you can stand up and get that 30 feet, wind and rain and snow is gonna come in at you. Yeah,
that one would work, right, though?
no, because you're standing there, it's all coming back at you. The low one's gonna protect you, that high one.
He's right.
Well, because that one's so much deeper.
Yeah.
Certainly on the side over here where it's narrower, but this one's a lot deeper.
It's so you stand in school, I'm just saying, the way wind and rain goes, the lower it is, you'll be better. So I just see when it's 20 feet, 25 feet in the air, or whatever that assumption is, the weather's gonna get to you, but the low ones, like the ones we have here, or in that picture on the low ones, you could see that would protect you from weather a little better. That's just,
Dave,
So I like the aesthetics and functionality of the canopies. I like the idea of incorporating that in various places. A little on the fence. I take the points people have been making about the wood and those specific pillars, but I'm a little bit on the fence. Kind of how I feel about that. One thing that I do want to kind of put out is that it's been, commented that we have other building projects going up, and obviously most recently, this is our most recently constructed school. We have the town hall going up, and we don't want to be like way off on a limb on the school building that doesn't fit with the general architecture of Wilmington. But on the other hand, it shouldn't look like a high school, and it shouldn't look like a town hall. Or just, an administration building, that it is an elementary school. And, again, without going crazy and having something that's just like, whoa, where did that come from? Like you drive through Wilmington, like, oh my God, check out this nut school that they've got over there on the north side. Certainly not looking for that. But again, this is, we haven't built an elementary, this is why we're here. We haven't built an elementary school in a long time. And it's going to be different from the other buildings in Wilmington, even the other schools like high school.
I would just add, if I could, that from an operational standpoint, I'm not sure the degree that the canopies are necessary for solar protection for the lights, but I would suggest the difference with the high school here, really inclement weather, is that the age of the students here can and do come right into the building and can go down to the cafeteria. And largely speaking, because of their age, they're, they don't really need to be supervised. If you think about that or compare and contrast that to our smaller elementary schools in really inclement weather with a population of 200, that's manageable. And worst case scenarios, and those students can be ushered into the cafeteria or the gymnasium in worst case scenarios. But that is a management issue in terms of supervision. But keep in mind that volume of people, the number of kids we're talking about here of 800, the degree of having protection from an operational standpoint, both in the morning and the afternoon, I think is really quite important to consider, as has been mentioned.
So to kind of combine those 2 points, the one thing, the east perspective one with the large window, we've talked the other time, you made some comments, Paul, about, being really particular about where we have extra cost. Having that sort of a window space attached to the dining area, I think is a phenomenal idea. It brings a lot of light into an area the kids are all gonna be through every day. And so if we can keep that type of an element, a lot of windows in that sort of the common space that you brought in, kind of like the picture on the bottom right as well, makes a great deal of sense. But if we have to bring the canopy down, that kind of destroys the window. So I don't know how you balance those 2 tensions. So I hear what you're saying. The lower it is, the more protective it is, which is exactly what will be needed operationally. But that window is I think, picking like a few things to really do nice things to make a nice life space, that seems to be a really good way to meet that goal. So I don't know how you balance that tension, but that's why you guys are experts. Yeah, figure it out.
So the issue with the windows, do we have these size windows on every side of the school? Or is it just in the front?
This window right here?
The floor to ceiling stuff, that's just a portion of the cafeteria.
In the front only?
Yeah, there.
Because on the other side, there was another perspective that looked like another spank of windows.
These up here?
No, last.
This one here? Or this one here? So this is that same window, right?
That's the same
cafeteria. This is the same one. This right now is the main entry, and right now we are exploring the area above it, because that is the library space. And so you might see this open up a little bit more, because that is a focal point as you are entering into the site and you look at the building. That's what you're seeing.
With that comes maintenance, lots of maintenance for these windows. And I'm sure Dennis can tell you, they'll break down. It's gonna be a maintenance issue ongoing in the school going forward. But I did think that he had another bank of windows, maybe. No, that was it?
No, the only curtain wall that we're exploring right now is at the cafeteria. And one of the differences, right, between even when we designed this building to this building is like the percentage of wall space that we can actually have as windows, right? I think we're like 21% of total wall area that we can actually use windows for to hit energy code. So when I'm looking at this stage, I've never had a project where out of the gate, we've seen something like this, and this is what it ended up looking, 0, right? And not just because the clients come back and said, we want it different. We do this all the time. Like I guarantee you come back, we've had more time to play with this. It's gonna be looking different, and we're gonna take into account some of the comments that you passed back. But looking at this, the important stuff for me at this stage is you kind of look at that elevation and you squint at it. I don't see color right now because there's a detail, but really it's the massing and the feel and the rhythm of that kind of exterior elevation. Does that feel right? Because we were trying to go for that kind of classic architecture. You look at this elevation here in the side of this building, right? It's a very similar punched windows. We're trying to, graduate those 2 different heights, strong base, lighter as we go up. The canopy, the depth of the canopy, the height of the canopy, that stuff we're all going to be playing around with once we start doing solar modeling on the building too, when we try to fine tune that. So there's lots of room for change. The big pieces were just kind of the big scale of the building, the form, the mass of it, right? It's a big building, and our goal was to try and break this down for the elementary school kids, so it feels like a smaller building. It's hard to do from the outside, and we're certainly trying to do it from the inside, to break those into smaller unit of spaces. Because one of our goals, right, is to not have anything that's overwhelming, to that student coming in. So it is, you try and take a look at these things, and the more time that you spend on a ship that's around, is kind of take that squint on it, and how does that feel? I'm not so concerned right now about the color or the material. We got some time to work through that. But it's just like the overall scale of the building and how that feels. I know you've talked about, mansard roofing. Usually every project I go into, they're talking about some type of sloped roof. And everybody gets pretty excited about that until we come back with the cost. And then everyone's not so excited about it. So we're kind of taking that, preemptive push here, saying, maybe there's something we could do with mansard roofing, but it's going to be pretty tough with our budget. I'm just trying to be as honest as I can. This is a big span, pitched roof on here. It's a big pitch, right? It's a lot of area to cover. But certainly if it's something that you're interested in, we can explore. But I would expect to see some changes from us coming back once we, land on this a little bit and take into this feedback coming back.
I just wanted to, because I think about this and I think about, thank you, like what it was like to be 4 years old, right? It was to be like to go to pre-K. Like I don't even have memories from being that young because your brain isn't really even remembering things. It's all color and rhythm and image and size. And I do think that you're on the right track with what you're talking about. I think we have a lot of changes we're talking about with materials and what have you, but I do think like I look at this and I'm not intimidated if I'm trying to speak to my inner child, right? Like I feel comforted by a lot of it. I think that's the wood and the columning as it is right now, but that can be changed. But like right there, like that's supposed to be isn't that supposed to be the entrance for the littles right there in the top? Right. So I think like that looks pretty appealing to me if I'm pulling up and leaving, like letting my 4-year-old go for the first day and trying not to cry as I drive away. Like it looks comforting, I think. So I think that's on the right track. So I just would invite us to remember like what it's like to be very, very small.
If I'm not on the committee, am I not allowed to speak at this time?
Not until the end.
All right.
Thank you for the feedback. As we mentioned, we will be taking all this feedback into account as we continue to refine and develop it. Right now, the big practice here is the massing, getting us to pricing, looking at the majority of the materials, which I think we can know is masonry at this point for this building. And continuing to develop some of these features, at the same time, we're balancing, the life cycle cost that's being developed and how many windows are in, each of these exterior facades, and creating that balance as well. And then also just looking at the size of this building on the site in this neighborhood, to try to break down that scale as well. So we're going to continue to work on that moving forward. So thank you.
Thanks, Ronnie. Item number 5 tonight is CM at risk update.
Yes, since the last time we met with you, we held a virtual walkthrough of the project on December 19th. We had questions due by any of the construction managers at risk that were due on the 2nd of January, and our statement of qualifications were due to us last Thursday, the 9th. So today our team met. I will tell you the contractors that did submit were Commodore Builders, Consigli Construction, Dimeo Construction.
What was that one?
Dimeo. Fontaine Brothers. Gilbane Building. Shawmut Design and Construction. And W.T. Rich. In a second, I'm going to turn it over to the town manager to talk about who we're going to recommend a shortlist to. But after we shortlist, the statement of qualifications, packages, will be notified and tomorrow by the town, and then packages will be available on the town's procurement site to pick up, on Thursday. From there, they will have their proposals will be due. They're, on the 4th of February, and then we're scheduling interviews for the week of, February 10th.
Interviews with the full committee or interviews with a working group?
With the working group. Eric?
Yes, so as the committee voted for the SEMA Res group, it was myself, Paul Ruggiero, Marion Galezzo, Julie and Lee, met. We got the proposals from the 7 contractors. We met today, as was mentioned, and had an evaluation process whereby we determined that the recommendation that we would make would be to shortlist the following 4 of the 7, which would be Consigli, Fontaine, Shawmut, and W.T. Rich.
Do we have any questions? We'll need a vote to move those shortlisted firms forward.
Just in general, is there any particularly appealing thing about the 4 that you did select as opposed to the 3 that were not selected? Any common theme, or was it just each one had individual strengths, or is there anything to share with us about that process at a high level?
Yeah, I think so. Without speaking too much for the rest of the group, I think it's fair to say that what we were looking for was contractors that had experience doing MSBA in elementary schools, that had proposed teams that we felt like had appropriate experience in the exact kind of project that we're proposing. We were looking for groups that had a good background in sustainability, so LEED certifications, that had done a significant number of those projects. So they know what kind of the expectations of those, both from documentation and also from product, and in addition to things like making sure that we didn't feel like they were overcommitted with projects that already had a pipeline, making sure that they didn't have a record of terminations or litigation, and then a review of their references and the scoring that their references gave them. So those were kind of the guidelines that we used. And in the process, it really came out that it was kind of these 4 and those 3. So the gradient didn't fall in a straight line. It was yeah. We kind of felt like at the beginning of the process, we were trying to make a determination as to whether we wanted to interview 3 or 4. I think personally, I would love to only have to interview 3. But as we got through the process, it kind of felt like there was a very natural differentiation between the 4 that we selected and the 3 that we did.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
And just to add to that, we were really fortunate. We had 7 really good companies that submitted for this project, and it didn't make it an easy task for us to get, a short list of 4. And while there was differences between all excellent firms, and, I do think the 4 that have been proposed to bring in an interview just stacked up a little bit higher with their experience in the teams that they proposed, and their approach. But I don't really good firms all around, and getting all of those firms interested in this project is big. So we appreciate all of their efforts, submitting for this project at this point.
Yeah, I agree with Lee's statement. Reading all 7 of these proposals, it was definitely obvious that they paid attention to the project. They had done the research, and they all put a tremendous amount of effort into what they presented to us. But in reviewing each one as a group, we started to see the ones that stood out. And it was evident to us, the ones that, we feel that, would be best suited for an interview for this process. Vivian does have her hand raised, just so you know.
Okay. Vivian, there.
Would it be possible to share the 4? I know we're not in the working group, but would it be possible to share the 4 that are the finalists with the committee?
The proposals?
Yes,
The 4 that we're intending to interview?
yes.
They,
I don't think there's a problem sharing that. No, I think that'll be fine.
No, it's public information.
Did you not hear before, Vivian? Which
No,
one
she
we-
would like to see.
She
No.
wants that.
I want to see the proposals. I heard Consigli, Fontaine, Shawmut, and W.T. Rich. I just wanted to actually see the proposals and read them of the 4 that we shortlisted.
Yes, we can have Tommy Donahue in the procurement officer, send that through the town to this committee.
Great, thank you.
Are the interviews in an open meeting format? How does that happen?
So generally speaking, you have a working group that does interviews and it's not at a posted meeting. Those are interviews.
Can you walk me through how this is gonna happen and how there's gonna be a vote taken on hiring in this company? Because this is not what we've done with the other buildings in this town.
Yes, I mean, sure. So the 5 members of the working group will send an email. Well, the town will send an email to each individual. We'll pick a time for them to come in and interview. We will interview
It's an in-person interview?
in an in-person interview in the town hall. We've agreed upon that. We have 2 days in which we have chosen to do these interviews. So 2 firms per day, and at the end, we will deliberate as a group. And
The
come
working
to,
group will deliberate as a group?
correct, and come to a consensus on what they feel, what we feel as the best construction manager to move forward with, and then present that to the building committee the following evening.
I don't want to conduct this in a vacuum, and I think that these committee members, however many of there are 22 people, I think we should have input into this process. This is not how we've done it before for the town hall or for the senior center.
I would just add, Paul, that this process is dictated by MSBA, and they have some requirements specifically setting up a subset of the building committee to run this exercise, to go through, to bring it back to a building committee work. So we're following the MSBA guidelines on that, which I agree probably are different from how you did it probably as a full committee. Personally, I don't think that I have an issue, and I have done it before, where building committee members were sitting in on interviews, not maybe interacting with them, but being able to have those sit in and listen to the interview so you understand what you heard from all of them. But this is just a process that we're following through that MSBA is prescribed.
Similarly to what Vivian was talking about, will we be able to have access to the materials from those follow-on interviews, like from proposals? Or like I'm assuming someone's taking notes. Or like, will there be like a
The
physical?
proposals that are submitted on the 4th of February.
So similar to that, with these interviews that Paul's talking about,
Transcription.
would there be transcripts that we could review before we take this from those interviews or no?
I mean, typically we'll provide the feedback. We'll come back to you and talk about what happened in the interviews, how we felt that they were, and provide you our feedback and our recommendation.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
So just to clarify a few things, so the materials for the 4 firms are going to be reviewed, those their documents can be circulated to the committee as a whole.
Yes.
Back to the question though, I think it was a question around the actual interviews. Eric, did I misunderstand you? Is that going to be open to the public, or is that going to be behind closed doors? Those interviews will not be open.
So those typically are not
They're
open
not
to the public.
why is it not open to the public? I just don't understand this. We've never hired a company that we're gonna pay millions of dollars to and not had it in a public forum.
This is how we've always done it through the MSBA. It's
But
always
the
been done with
MSBA
the group.
doesn't say that you can't have it as a public meeting, do they?
No, I don't believe so.
Well, this is a big deal. I don't want it done behind closed doors, you know? You know, I want this committee, I want everything that we're doing to be completely transparent to everybody in town. I understand maybe a transcript. I don't even want to see a transcript. At the very least, I'd like to see the interviews recorded and be made available for people to be able to watch so that they know what we're doing here. That's where I'm at.
Nice. Simple sort of question. This building, was it CM at risk or design the building? So how was the process for this building's selection of CM? Would it follow
Yeah,
the
we
same?
had open interviews.
So it was an MSBA project as well, so.
Yes, I mean, but that was going on 10 years now.
Yeah.
We were at that point in that process, and maybe it's changed, but we had open interviews.
If it's not prescribed as something we're forbidden to do, and it's, if MSBA would let us, and it's not gonna reflect negatively on our capacity to move this project forward, I fully agree with Paul that this should be posted as like here at town hall, we're doing this interview, and you can come in the public and watch, like.
We are spending millions of dollars here. I don't want this done behind closed doors. I mean, I'll push for this all day long.
Eric, do you have thoughts?
Well, no, if folks would be comfortable, why don't I just check with town council, make sure that we're able to do it in a public forum, and then we can just post it as a meeting of the school building committee.
I would be thrilled with that.
And then as long as as town council says we're not violating anything, we'll have that kind of that stamp, and then.
Yep.
So folks are aware, the tentative schedule is for, it's February 11th and 12th. From 5 to 7.
You want the dates again?
11th and 12th of February. From 5 to 7 each night.
1 hour each.
So there'll be two, like 45 minutes each with a break in between. There's 2 each night.
So just to circle back, when you hired the OPM, there was a subset of your group that was on that process. It wasn't the entire building committee. Same thing when you hired the designer, there was a designer selection subcommittee that hired the designer. And we're just following the same prescription that has
But
been,
we weren't a committee yet, so, right, so that was, yeah.
you were a committee. You
We
did have a
were a
committee.
committee at that point. There was a committee at that point, it was a very small committee.
Yep.
And that whole committee made the decision.
And I
And it was
believe
only
Sorry.
maybe 6.
it was a small number, but I also, they were done via Zoom. That was still in the wake of
Yeah.
COVID, if I remember correctly, but I'm fairly certain that those were open to the public. Believe I'd have to double check, but I think that that's how we managed those. Although there was a subset of the committee that was voting to select. But I'm fairly certain that those interviews were done on Zoom, but open to the public, but I can.
They certainly were recorded, because I
Yes,
watched them all.
right. They're
So-
recorded, but I don't
But I
recall them
don't,
being.
I don't know, I mean, we could go back and look at the dates and the town clerk would be able to say
Yeah,
it was a posted meeting.
I don't recall them being open meetings, only because typically we don't have designers watching other designers at that time.
Well, like I said, I could be wrong. I have to double check.
No, I think, Paul, to your point, I think it's perfectly reasonable to have that as a transparent process for the interviews. The only suggestion I would advise our 4 candidates as a professional courtesy not to be involved, right? To give any type of advantage to, the firm that's going last watching the
Yeah, I mean,
firm's
that's the
presentation.
point. If it's recorded, it's live, or people will hear live. The next two interviews after the first one has an advantage, because they know what the question is going to be.
We typically will record them, but not live, so they will be recorded and then you can watch them back later. A lot of
They don't
firms
have
do
to be
it.
live. but
Yeah, we don't have to, we don't have to broadcast them on WCTV.
we should have access to the content of
Sure.
those interviews before a vote, final vote is taken. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Whether we're in the room or if we're able to look at a video after all four have been interviewed.
So the intent was to have a meeting scheduled for, is it the 13th? To vote, so that would allow people time to watch the videos. But we can definitely have town council.
I think it's
look into it.
easier if we just have it as a, if we can, suppose it's a public meeting as for the school building committee and everybody can. Kind of attend and be there
And not have it.
and record it, yeah, absolutely, I think we need. to
Record it.
live.
You know, this has to be live.
Not live,
Yeah.
but the question I have is it still the subset of the group, that just reviewed the RFQs? And the RFP to be your voting members, or is it you would like the entire committee to be voting members?
I think the entire committee is gonna take a vote.
I think that by default happens when the recommendation is made. I think the MSBA was trying to isolate, to a group that's tasked specifically with all of the background information that has to go through on these, because it is a big decision, so there's a lot of work. And being able to be fair to the other firms and, having a group of people that is posing the same questions to people over and over, I think is important just to keep apples to apples. I don't have any problem with the public being able to watch. As far as the interaction with them, I think we'd have to be careful.
Yeah, no, I'm not advocating for that at all.
Okay.
But I think we should be able to see the content, hear the content before this whole committee makes a vote. We're gonna hire.
Justin, before you
Let's
speak, Vivian and Diane have had their hands raised online.
Thank you for watching that. Vivian?
Thank you for that, Paul. I appreciate your comment because I would agree with you 100%. I would like to see the information, even though I'm not part of the 5 selected individuals to be part of the working group making this recommendation. But typically I've had meetings of similar where they are open to the public, and as long as they're recorded and not live streamed the day of, so that it doesn't impede upon another person's or another firm's ability to watch their competitor and pivot accordingly. I would agree with you. I would like them to be not necessarily outlined as school building committee meetings, because then you would have to have a quorum, but a open meeting to interview the 4 candidates. That way, if I'm able to make it, I can be in attendance and present, not interact with them, but at least hear their presentation. So when you guys come back as a working group to the entire committee, I can, in full conscience, make a decision that, yes, I've either watched it or been present for the interview, and I feel comfortable with the recommendation.
Right.
So I support your comment. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, Vivian, I think the concern though would be if we do have a quorum and it is not publicly posted. So we just have to be careful of that. So we'll work through those logistics with the town manager's office.
Diane?
And it could be, we could be watching it. We don't have to be in attendance physically, but even if we could just watch it then the following day before the vote, I think would be helpful for the full committee.
Diane?
Yes, I want to agree also with what Paul said and also Vivian's comment here. I have one other additional thing though. If, since I'm out of state right now, would this meeting be able, so we cannot go in like a Zoom to the meeting, is that it? And just watch it while it is physically going on and they're making their presentation? We would have to see the recorded version of it. And how would we get that recorded version?
I think I can fairly answer. The first question is yes, it sounds like that would be the approach, that it would be a recording. And I believe, maybe also check with town council, but I believe that recording's link could then be shared after the interviews, right?
There wouldn't be any reason not to share it once we have it.
Yes.
My only question is, where's it gonna live to be able to be shared? That's the technology thing.
But they would
But after the meeting is, or after all 4 meetings, interviews have happened, you could then post it on Wilmington Cable Access and becomes a live document. Because the meeting has already happened, all 4 has already happened, and now there's no ability to give one firm an advantage over the other.
Just,
At the risk of asking a silly question or overthinking this, I have no issue public, I agree. But if we're advertising these as public, wouldn't that allow the opportunity for the 2 firms going on the second day to attend the interviews on the first day?
So that is true, and I just said we should mention to, and I'm sure that they would agree with it, because we do it all the time as well, as a professional courtesy, for them not to attend those live interviews. Only be there for their own.
It's not much different actually than an interview for the town manager. Like in theory, those are public interviews before I interviewed, but I would never have shown up. Right. Ensured I didn't get the job. I tried to show up and sandbag the competition. But yeah. Joe marks the glass on the nose.
Yeah. So just one more question though. I'm a little unclear. So the meeting on February 11th for the first 2 that are going to be interviewed, there is no, that'll be blocked out by the rest of the other members. We would be able to see a recording of it though, after all 4 are interviewed. Is that correct? Am I correct in assuming that?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I want. I needed a clarification on that. Okay, and would that be through? Would we get that through the website, or would it be through WCTV?
we can create, or I can share the link through our email group to the recordings, and I can work with Mr. Lord to make sure that those are loaded and available as easy to watch through a link.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
Is there a formalized ranking or scoring system that NASPA requires as part of this?
Not as a formalized scoring requirement. They don't require that, but they do require us to provide them the data on how we came to the decision.
Where will those interviews take place? Is it gonna be here or is it gonna be at the town hall? At the town hall. Okay. So you said room 9, correct?
I think that needs to be worked out. I know that there are FinCom meetings and there is also a school committee meeting
On the Wednesday.
on the Wednesday, so I think that is being worked out.
We just set up those dates 2 hours ago.
Okay. Just because that did, in terms of getting WCTV to do it, whether it's gonna be them or the owl will dictate how the production of that to disseminate is gonna happen. So we can obviously start to address that tomorrow, but just it really depends on who the keeper of the original recording is as to how easy it's gonna be to disseminate. If we do it in-house through the owl like this, then we also have to make sure we have perfect IT going, and don't run into this issue during the interview. So just wanted to clarify that so I can help better through that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the discussion and was it said earlier that the date, so this will require a vote ultimately of the whole committee, as I understand it. Is there a specific deadline by which that vote following these interviews has to happen?
The plan was to have a meeting on the 13th to have that vote. So we're gonna meet, interview 11th, 12th, and the plan was to have a meeting of the committee on the 13th.
Virtual meeting.
A virtual meeting on the 13th. It has not been scheduled. It is not on anyone's calendar yet. We just decided it as we were trying to work out the interview dates with people's calendars.
And also want to make sure our candidates can hit the dates that we're picking too before
Correct.
we pick our date to finalize.
Does it have to happen on the 13th, that vote?
To keep us on schedule with the estimate, yes. if we are pushing the estimate out, which will then affect our MSBA schedule. And since we've already changed and delayed our MSBA schedule twice, I think that, we should probably stay on that.
Quick question. So they're gonna want to help create the estimate, but we haven't finished designing the building. So isn't there a time in there to?
The schematic design estimate is ready, I think, on February 20th, right? So we need to bring them on board before February 20th, so.
There's a lot of background information that we're trying to get them up to speed with before we actually say, here you go, here's the plan. So right now, our schedule is pretty tight to get their heads into it, as much as doable, but extending it out too much further becomes a little bit problematic. We don't give them a lot of time to sink their teeth into it and understand the back.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, we haven't decided on the final exterior of the building, the interior of the building. So what are they estimating? Like, what do they have to estimate? Because like, where do they go when you don't know if we finalize the brick on the outside or the tree on the inside or whatever?
We're gonna get to a point where we pick materials, like by the end of this schematic design phase, we may not have the colors completely nailed down, but we're gonna have an estimate based on assumed materials that we're gonna be working with you on between now and the end of February. That's what the estimate is gonna be based on, right? We're gonna have all those drawings to be able to give them, all the specs to go with that. And that's kind of our basis to design, to build a budget from. There's 9 months of design work to go after a vote for us to be able to refine that stuff, pick the color palette. But right now, this whole exercise is about setting our budget, right? And so design's still gonna change and evolve after the vote, but we gotta fit within the parameters of the budget. So we're trying to get as much and the best information as we can to build that number with right now.
So there will be a contingency that goes, because obviously the building's not completely designed. We're gonna be working out the details in that 9 months for design. But this is just to give that overall,
Yeah, but when I'm looking at, like, so they're only looking at the structure itself and not the heating and cooling system, not the pricing on any of that.
Okay.
We won't have any of that. So we're gonna decide between geothermal or ground system, or,
Yes,
we'll have all that in 2 weeks,
not in 2 weeks.
4 weeks.
Yes.
And so that estimate
Seems
goes
aggressive.
out.
That's-
Again, I know I sit here as not thrilled with the colors and the beams and all that, and I guess that may come quicker than I'm thinking. We met once and we're gonna meet a second time in sustainability. We haven't talked about geothermal or what, we went to tour geothermal, we never toured the other 3 options or really talked about the other options. We keep saying the word geothermal, but we've never talked about the other 3 options. And to me, those are a lot of big discussions and decisions that would have to be made before someone could price it. I mean, we know we want heating, air conditioning in the buildings, but how we're gonna get there and which option.
Well, I believe right now, your sustainability committee, right, you're looking at 4 different systems and a baseline system. Correct? 4 different
We met
HVACs.
for 45 minutes so far, so
Right.
yeah, so that's why I'm showing a little concern on. I just don't see how you can price all this stuff. And we're putting the date that quick when we haven't even determined or gone through all the options and how to get there and what is the best thing for Wilmington? Now, does geothermal make sense in Wilmington? Does it not? What are those other options and those costs? We still get to there. So I don't think Wilmington's decided on which way to go on those. So that's my concern. I mean, maybe this is the normal operation of you guys and this is all gonna fall together over the next 4 weeks and I'll be amazed, but I just think these are some of the things that I felt it on the beginning. I come on the committee late and then we were selected schools. I was under the assumption that we were gonna, and I mentioned it in the meeting, value engineer from the point of, okay, we decided pre-K through 5, but that happened earlier. Now, I've been on the committee long enough, we're talking about going to pricing, but I'm not even sure we know what we're using yet. And like I said, if that all happens quickly in 4 weeks, it's taken a lot of weeks just to decide from the vision boards on where we want to be. Now, again, I don't know how anyone else feels. That's just me. And this may come together quickly and you guys live it every day. And I may be making it bigger than it seems, but I just figured I'd speak my mind on it.
I think those were all valid points. And, that's why when we put the schedule together, and presented it to everyone for the first of the year, that we were having meetings every 2 weeks, because we had a lot of information that we needed to present to you a lot of decisions that needed to be made. And they're not firm decisions. Like when you're looking at these images, is it, we're not saying, okay, we're going with green. That's it. Everyone today it's green. But it's the thought of, okay, do you like this? Do you not? Okay, let's refine it. But in the schematic design estimate, as we mentioned earlier today, we're gonna have to take a conservative approach to that, heating and cooling system, as we haven't nailed it down yet. We're getting in that direction, but we haven't quite nailed that one down yet. So we talked this morning about, in our leadership meeting, about making sure that we used a conservative approach if we can't get there that thus far for the estimate. Bringing this construction manager on at this stage was the intent, as we discussed with everyone going through this process, was to bring them on to do that estimate. Normally, if you brought them on later, the estimate would have been done by my office, which we subcontract an estimating firm out. They use PMC, we use Amy Fogarty, but instead we took that away from SMMA and said, let's bring the CM on early so they can help us with that estimate. And they do that portion as opposed to having SMMA subconsultant do that. And so, again, we're falling within the entire schedule that the MSBA has laid out for us, and we delayed because we wanted more time to find out whether or not we wanted to go with a pre-K to K, pre-K to 3, pre-K to 5. So we pushed out that schedule, got permission from the MSBA twice to push out our schedule. We're now in line, and we have it lined up to be at the MSBA Board of Directors meeting on June 25th, 2025, which backs us into our schematic design submission going in April 24th of 2025. Have those 2 dates right? And so there's a lot of work that has to get done between now and then. So we can stay on this path and stay, moving forward to town vote, which is scheduled for, or potentially.
September, no, they voted September 13th and September 16th, and it's your dates for the select board selected on Tuesday night.
So, as much as we would love to take more time to be able to, shake things out a little bit more, we're beholden to the schedule to the MSBA, and that we've all agreed upon. So.
All agreed upon it, but again, Wilmington has no experience around geothermal. Wilmington has no experience around some of these things. So we're gonna make a decision today to price out something that we really are gonna kind of just move through the process instead of understanding the mind, because we're not gonna, there's not enough time to get a great understanding. So I guess we're turning to you guys and saying, well, you've done this before and you're telling me that geothermal is the way to go, or whatever option. And that is the most expensive option out of all of them. But we're not gonna have a lot of time as a committee to make decisions.
So you have a subcommittee meeting on the 15th, date that was changed to? Tomorrow, it's tomorrow. To talk further about that. I think that if you need to feel a level of comfort, we can potentially bring in one of the engineers to have that conversation. We do have another meeting scheduled for January 29th.
But again, I thought the subcommittee would meet and talk about things, then we'll bring it back to the committee and we decide on, as a group, what system we're gonna go with, right? So
that's the plan.
So what does Paul know about geothermal after we're done? Only what I tell him in that meeting. So what does he know about, whether it's a different, you know what I'm saying? So like, we're gonna sit at a table and not everybody understands the options and make a decision quickly. So, and again, I guess that's how the process is gonna work, but I don't know if anyone else feels that it seems like a large decision to be made pretty quickly.
Well, I agree with you on the geothermal. That is hundreds of thousands of dollars that needs to be discussed within the group. If the committee decides to go that way. To Dennis's point, we're running out of time. I mean, is it an option when you go out to bid to do, 2 different heating systems when you go out to bid? Or do you have to be solid on which one you want?
No, we want to be solid on one. And Dennis, you're completely right. I feel the same way, right? There's a lot of stuff going on, right? If you look behind the scenes right now, right, we are advancing the ball on many different fronts. Aesthetics, floor plan, we're trying to wrestle to the ground. At the same time, we're working through HVAC, we're doing the site planning. All of it feels like it's in limbo right now for us too, right? Until we kind of nail some of that down. But specifically to your HVAC question, right? There's 4 different options. One of them being geothermal, ground sourced heat pumps, one of them being air sourced. One of them, they're all electric because that's what we need to do to hit the code. We're going to come up with pricing for each one of those options to be able to compare back to, here's what we told you in the PSR phase. Construction cost, project cost. Here's the assumption we made on your mechanical system. Now we've done a study on 4 of them, 4 different systems. Here are those same numbers from when you started with PSR with the incentives attached to them. So when we can look at geothermal and you have the potential to get some additional incentives, this is just the capital costs that I'm talking about outlay, right? The other side of this is the return on investment. So there's 2 pieces. We need to know how much do we have to spend up front to buy this system? And that may be more expensive for one system than another. But at the same time, on the backside of it, what's the better return of investment? What the answer is, I don't know yet. But we will in the next 4 weeks, when we come back with that life cycle cost analysis, say, here's the pricing of these 4 systems. These are what these 4 systems mean. When we come back to this committee, we'll be here with our engineers, not to share the same information we have with the smaller working group. These are the foundational aspects of these 4 different systems. Here's the pricing information on them. Here's what we know about ongoing maintenance costs for these systems. Which of these 4 systems do we want to move forward with? And you'll have the information on pricing, you'll have the information on return on investment. You've got some very capable people on the sustainability committee that do this for a living as well, that are providing input onto it. So I agree with you. There's a lot of moving pieces right now that have to come together rapidly, right? By April 25th, we submit all of this cost. This is all the stuff to MSBA. So that's what we're working against. So when we say February, the end of February, we're trying to get that cost estimate out. Between the end of February and March, we're getting that information back. How does that match up against our PSR estimate? If it's high, right, we got work to do. We have to go back and reevaluate all that stuff before we make a final decision. So right now, it's always a check against what we brought to you to date, PSR. We've made assumptions to get to that number in PSR. Now we're digging into the details. We're gonna be able to come back with these details and say, this is how this measures up to these assumptions that we made. We're either on track or we're not. We have to change course and then make those decisions. But it's gonna happen pretty rapidly between the end of February, when we need that piece of information that you guys want. Where are we on cost with all this stuff that you guys have been showing us up to this point? If that comes in high, we're gonna be reevaluating that between February and when we submit April. That date's never changing. So that's why these dates are where they are, to give us some fallback, right? When we get those numbers back, if we're high, what do we have to do to change? We're already thinking of that, right? We're already developing lists, right? If it does come in high, where are the target areas on this project that we think we can live with to share with you guys? So we're developing all of these different fronts at the same time. And you can't nail them down because there's a sequence of events that has to happen, right? We can't tell you where all the windows and what the exterior looks like until we nail down the floor plan. We can't nail down the floor plan until we've talked to the users and we make sure we've got enough casework on these walls, and the windows that we're trying to put in don't interfere with them. So it's a whole sequence of events that has to happen in an order, and it's all going to happen pretty quick. And so they're all advanced pretty far right now. We're just trying to get to the finish line on all of them. So I agree with you. It's kind of like controlled chaos in schematic design to get to that cost information. And it's not done at that point, right? That's just setting the budget, setting the plate for us that we have to live within. And we're not going back after that. So that's why we're working really hard right now to try and uncover the rocks. We're gonna have 10% of design done at the end of schematic design. So 90% of it still has to get done. We're trying to get as much of that information in that 10% as we can that really influences cost, because this is our one shot at it, right? If we don't get this right, we're going to be fighting it as a committee all the way through design about, prioritizing what we want if we can't fit it. So we're trying to get the best, most realistic number we can in front of it.
And once we get that estimate back and we put the schematic design package together, we go before the MSBA, we create your project scope and budget agreement, and that's where we lock in that amount. So it's not too far away. If you think about it, we're in January, we're going to be locking that in April, so that you'll know exactly what your budget is. You'll be able to tell the townsfolk, this is what the MSBA share is, and this is what our local share is, and this is what your tax increase will look like. So it's not that far away. But I do understand and agree that, picking a system today and being like, well, I guess this is what we're going with, we're not really sure. I think bringing in engineers and having them explain to this entire group, I mean, I'm not gonna claim to be an expert at all. So I learn, new things every day about these heating systems. And I think that having them come in here, maybe, and having them have a conversation and explaining what each one of these means to the group who may not be, may not speak that language, to help you inform your decision. And they can do that in that sustainability working group as well. I do have Vivian on the line with her hand raised, just so you know. Vivian?
I apologize. That was an error.
Okay. I have one last question here. So if the interviews are going to take place on the 11th and the 12th, and then there's going to be a virtual meeting on the 13th, that's going to include all of us, correct? This
Correct.
meeting. Okay. How are we going to have an opportunity to look, at the interviews if it's, the 13th, 11th, 12th, 13th? They're probably going to run at least an hour and a half, each person. That doesn't give us much time to be able to go in and even look at WCTV's recording of it.
So we're planning on having the interviews be 45 minutes, just so you know. Not takes away from the fact that it's a long period of time, but they will each be 45 minutes. And we will get them to you as soon as humanly possible, after that meeting. I can't control that. I won't be the keeper of the document, but we'll figure out how we can get them to the committee as soon as possible.
Okay. And that meeting on the 13th is virtual meeting for everybody.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
It has not gone out yet. We just decided it about 2 hours ago. So Sarah will send that invitation to the entire committee tomorrow.
Got it. Thank you.
The only thing I'd add to that, right, is we have not contacted the 4 shortlisted firms.
Correct.
And we will be saying, these are the slots that we have open, but we don't know exactly what's on their schedule. We certainly do want to interview them. So I'm only throwing that out there as the 13th is our target date. And it certainly depends on, nailing down these interview schedules with the candidates. And if for whatever reason they couldn't do the 11th or 12th, we might have to come back and pick a different time for our virtual meeting on a decision. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay. And then that notice will go out to all of us. So we'll know. We'll be kept up to date on that. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we would have to just clarify even with town council that, like, if we the committee, I would be the assumption that we wouldn't even be able to release it electronically to anyone until all 4 are completed. So I think, to Diane's point, if the second set of interviews gets done at 7 o'clock on February 12th, you basically have 24 hours to watch 4 interviews if you're interested in seeing the content. So, that is a time commitment, for everyone, certainly. But people do work and have families and whatnot. So, it may not be 100% return that every committee member has the ability to watch it. So we think that's going to be important to also clarify that we can release the documents that we need to the committee, so that if they can't sit into the interviews, that they at least have the materials of the firms and what they've submitted to at least tell their story in electronic form. Because I'm not sure that we'll get 100%, of the committee being able to achieve that viewing if they can't be there.
But we will have the option of actually sitting in and watching.
Yes.
I know we're on this point for a long time, so I appreciate it. But I guess I have just 2 thoughts. One, with regard to geothermal, I think one thing we can do is just like, if we reach this discussion and we just don't feel that we have enough information, we can just choose something that's just less advanced, like something more tried and true, right? Like I think, but unfortunately, because of the timing, I think that's just kind of what we're facing. We have to just pick like the simpler thing. But I guess, so, okay, I'm gonna ask a very layperson's question here, and I'm sorry to ask this. But when we're deciding on seeing at risk, I know one of the advantages was you bring them in early and they're there to help you and they're flexible. But are they not saying I can do this project at number X? I think what we're talking about here is if the numbers are fluctuating, how can they bring a number to the table as to what they will charge if we don't even know? I guess just put it out there in layperson's terms. I apologize.
Sure,
I
so,
think that's a really good question.
right, so the work we're asking them to complete, right, is called pre-construction services.
Right.
And we've actually dictated to them the fee that's available for them for that work, so all four know that it's available. And that's the big piece of it. They gotta work within that. They are flexible, to that point, but they all know what the number is that we're getting, and that's the value. Is to get them involved in providing this estimate.
And so they'll help us with the estimate, but they're also gonna help us, get you all to the town vote. So they're gonna assist with, marketing and outreach and things like that, along with Doran Whittier and SMMA. So they'll be, an integral part of the team as well.
Okay, and then do we have a separate vote where we say, okay, here's the number now?
So they are developing the number with us, right? We're putting all this work together. Doran Whittier are gonna put an estimate together with our estimator.
Yep.
Whoever the CM is, we're gonna give them the same package we're estimating.
Right.
They're gonna come up with it on the side. They're gonna have a number, we're gonna have a number. We're gonna spend a whole day together going through every single line item
Reconciling.
and coming to agreement on what that is. To your point, about the geothermal system and the four options, and you don't feel you're comfortable making a decision, and what do you do, right? We are stuck with the schedule. We are stuck with coming up with the cost. If we get into that pickle, my suggestion would be conservative, right? For setting a budget, pick the expensive one to set the budget while we're developing more information to make you comfortable. We can hit the high target if that's where you guys choose. If you pick something lower, right, we're within that. If that came up, I'm just saying that's how we were trying to solve that problem.
Thank you.
And just to remind everybody on the committee, the current estimate did have geothermal, our PSR estimate had geothermal in it, so that's the way we've been operating so far, is the conservative.
I would like to move that we there was a motion we need to take, don't we? Is there a motion we need to do? So I'd like to move.
Shortlist the four firms.
Yeah, I'd move that we shortlist the four firms that were listed by the town manager.
We're listed together.
Yeah, that would be Consigli, Fontaine, Shawmut, and WT Rich.
Second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call.
Vivian?
Diane Allen,
Yes.
Glenn Brand,
Yes.
Michael Camosio,
Yes.
Justin Couche,
Yes.
Marianne Galezzo,
Yes.
Nicholas Golden,
Yes.
Christine Holleran,
Yes.
Dennis Kelly,
Yes.
Paul Melorani,
Yes.
Craig Minor,
Abstain.
Judy O'Connell,
Yes.
Christine Pendergast,
Yes.
David Ragsdale,
Yes.
Paul Ruggiero,
Yes.
Stacy Scott,
Yes.
Eric Schlegel,
Yes.
Stephen Turner.
He left the meeting.
Okay, thank you. And myself, yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Vivian. Working group updates is item number 6 tonight, public relations. Begin with.
Yes, with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Camosio to give a update.
Thank you, Vivian. So we have our next meeting tomorrow, but since our last meeting, the end of December, we got the flyer prepared from SMMA and Doran Whittier to Shawshene Tech. That's been produced, already dropped off at Town Hall over a week ago, and that's going to be in the next Waterville Flyers. And we are also discussing the outreach that we would need to do to the various school boards and if other school community groups, if there's any interest in those groups becoming more engaged in the project. Not sure if you have anything to add, Vivian.
Yes, I just have a question, Mike. Is there any way, I mean, before this goes out, the notice that's gonna go in the water bills, I mean, we are a committee of 22 members here, but there has to be a way that we can at least see these things before they're put in the bills. Is there a way that we can get a copy of it emailed to us as members of the committee so that we know what it's going to look like?
Sure,
I believe that
Diane.
happened in December.
Yeah, it did. We did send it out in December, Diane. Also, the working group does not do this in a vacuum. The information was provided to us from SMMA and Doran Whittier so that the messaging is very consistent throughout all of the platforms and all of the means of communication. And in addition, the content for it was also reviewed with the leadership group.
Correct. Correct.
So it got approval and review from all sides, and we did send it out in December to the community, the committee, this school building committee, all 22 members, prior to it being included as part of the water bill.
Oh, I guess I didn't get, then I must have missed that. Is there a way that I
We could send it out to you again. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem, of course.
Yeah, I didn't get that either, Vivian.
Out to the whole school building committee.
Yeah, no, I
Can you
never.
resend it, Vivian, just to everyone, just to let
Yeah.
them know that it'll be coming in the upcoming water bill so that they know what it looks like?
That's exactly what that's what Diane is asking and Marianne, so I will gladly do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Sustainability, Green Design Working Group.
So I'll just give a quick update. We're meeting again tomorrow to review some of the sustainability elements for the project. And then in the background, the engineer has been working on the life cycle cost analysis. So that should be ready in about a week for the first pass. So that process included us developing a model, giving that to the engineer, and then they run through the life cycle cost analysis. So that's kind of working in the background. And so in about 2 weeks, we should have that ready for the sustainability working group to review and then bring that to the school building committee. And that's pretty much the update for right now.
Just before we get too far away from the water bill flyer, I just want to mention that it was emailed on December 18th. And the email came from Sarah. So check your email from December 18th for an email from Sarah.
Sarah?
Yeah. Sarah Triniello.
I'll gladly circulate it again so that way it's up on the top of your emails.
Great, thank you.
And last but not least, Site and Landscape Working Group.
That wants to do it. Yeah. You want to do it? Okay, so the group met for the first time. We had the civil and landscape engineers as part of that meeting and really went through a list of discussion points to get a better understanding of some of the preferences for the site. And we went through that. So now the landscape engineer, they're taking that information to help develop the site plan. So we'll be bringing that. So these are all those balls that are kind of in the works right now. And shortly you'll start to see updates on those.
Questions on that? Okay, community outreach, continuing along that line, the number 7 Butters meeting. We have talked about this.
Yeah, Stephen has left. He didn't get an opportunity to
Yeah.
ask about the abutters meeting, but we put it on the agenda for him. Nick, go ahead.
I'll have a question for it then. Where is it?
It will be at the North Intermediate School cafeteria. And actually the meeting for the SBC will be relocated to the North Intermediate for that evening as well. It will be, we will have the owl as well, but so that we can have the abutters who are in that proximity, close to home, we're gonna bring them over for a 6 p.m. meeting, and we're gonna bump our SBC to 7 p.m.
Great. And would you would you advise that the whole body join the abutters meeting? What's the tendency?
I think it is really up to you if you'd like to join to hear what the abutters have to say. We've drafted an email. It is with the town manager's office. They are going to
A
distribute it.
letter.
I'm sorry, yes, it is an email. I apologize. It is a letter.
Mail. Perfect.
And they will be sending that out to all 27 abutters. And so, yes, I don't see an issue with any member of the committee wanting to join that meeting to hear what people have to say. So while they're looking at drawings and things of that, they're taking that into their perspective and how they look at the project as a whole.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Do we do a roll call vote if we all show up?
Probably.
So we'd have to plan that in advance, if people say, because
Yeah,
we need
post
to. No, we could have a quorum, then we have to do a roll call vote before you start the public forum, right?
Yeah, also, let me talk to town council about that, because like, for instance, there's a quorum of this.
Community forums.
Yeah, community forums, there are quorums at the town meeting, we don't have to have, I think it's only if you're there deliberating.
Okay.
So I think if we're not deliberating, which is something I was gonna ask about the interviews as well, if there's not a quorum deliberating, but I'll get an answer about that, because I was gonna get an answer before.
And will this be posted publicly?
Yes.
This, okay.
I have a question. When you say abutters, I mean, how far out do you go to send these letters? I mean, are they really just people that are really right next to the school, or is it like 250 feet, you know, all around the school, the whole circumference of it?
Judy, were you?
So I can take that one, Diane, just
Okay,
everyone else around the leadership table could as well. Basically what we did was the direct abutters that actually abut the property. So there's 27 parcels that actually touch the four corners of the parcel that would be developed for the school. That is a first pass. That abutters list was actually certified by Karen Rashis as our town assessor. So we started with that. In the letter, which we certainly can send out to the committee, it was just drafted today and reviewed by Eric, is that there will be other community engagement meetings, but we're starting with the immediate abutters to start. So there's 27 names on that list. The letter will go out tomorrow. We are sending a certified letter to the abutters as well as a first class mail item, so they will actually get two. So that there'll be no indication that someone didn't receive, a mail from us. So we're
Great.
spending a little extra money to make sure that we can confirm receipt. And that will be a first pass, and then there will be follow-on community meetings from there.
got it. Great, thank you, Judy.
Do you have a question as well, or was that?
No, I was just gonna support your comments on the letter, just to indicate when it was gonna go out and how we were sending it, because in past examples, people have indicated as abutters they did not receive communications from the town. And it's a certified list from the assessor. She signs off on it, and we're sending it in two manners so that people know that they received it.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help, for both of you for that. We should have let Stephen know because he did look. No.
I know in one of the warrants, we paid for surveying of the site. That's been completed, and the property markers, the stakes in the ground. Do we know?
Yes and yes.
Okay. So these abutters are gonna come to this meeting and they're gonna know where their property lines are.
Yeah, the benchmarks have been left out there.
Do we know if there's anything controversial when it was staked out?
Nothing controversial. I think with the butters and property lines, there's a few discrepancies we had to work out from like the 1800s over where the roadway easement was and how that worked, but that seems to all have been coming together. There was some discussion, I think at one point we were showing, emergency egress through Arlene Ave. Right now, based on our research, we found that looks like it's supposed to be a pedestrian only access. So, we've changed course on that a little bit to be able to keep that as it is. But outside of that, I don't think we found any real big surprises.
We've learned a lot about the history of how to. Paul Looney, our town engineer, has been exceptional. We've been working very closely with Durham Whittier and with KP Law. And it's amazing. It almost feels like a episode of Bridgerton, but it's like Bridgerton.
It's like it takes you back in
I mean,
time.
they literally pay with Apple. I mean, there's literally, you can go back and look, and it's pretty amazing how.
Is it a ball?
It's worth
It's you know, it's a very interesting, Paul Looney has learned a lot about Wilmington, and he can tell you the story, and it's pretty fascinating to actually listen to it. It's very different than the way we do business today in the land courts and with the registry of deeds. So it's been enjoyable to learn more about the town that I grew up in through the whole process, so it's pretty neat to piece it all together, so.
Item number 8, discussion correspondence, new items tonight. Anything else we have not touched upon that members want to raise? Number 9, committee questions. I just have one if I could. Eric, could you just clarify that you said that the select board voted to approve it Saturday, September 30th and Tuesday, September 16th. Those are the 2 dates?
That is correct.
Okay, great.
And just to be clear, Saturday would be the special town meeting. We anticipate it's gonna be at 9 AM. We anticipate it's gonna be here at the high school. And then Tuesday would be the ballot question vote. It's required, and in all likelihood, they will, although it will take a vote of the select board, but they indicated that they would approve of it when it came from them. There will be early voting, both by mail and in person. So folks would be able to just come into town hall and vote prior to that, not on that day.
Thank you for that clarification. Judy?
Just wanted to just give a friendly reminder that there was an email sent out recently with a reiteration of the committee meetings. I think it's really important that if you didn't get that email, or if you can go back to what you might have already put in your calendars, because there are some changes from some of the original dates that the committee has received. So just make sure that you attend that email and change the dates that you might have already had preloaded, because there have been some changes.
I think one of those was moving a meeting from a Tuesday to a Wednesday, so just want to make sure everyone's been pretty comfortable with Tuesday meetings, and just to make sure that they are aware that one of those meetings falls on a Wednesday.
Including our next one.
I don't know how many people use calendar, electronic calendar and the invites. If there's a preference for us to also shift to that, as opposed to just an email, informational email, happy to do that. It's a lot of people.
But
Overall,
like
people
that.
are.
Sarah sends those.
Yeah, Sarah sends it by Outlook.
Okay.
She sends like literally the entire year, so everyone gets inundated by.
Public comments, item number 10. So, sorry, Paul. Sorry.
So, for you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Town Manager, would you just comment on the Shawshene Tech letter that was in your correspondence last night, and how that could potentially impact Wilmington in the future, and how that process goes? That's a different process Shawshene Tech uses to assess member towns for costs. Is that right?
Yes, so Shawshene Tech is at this point where Wilmington was 3 or 4 years ago, in the process where they've been applying for a few years to try to get in, and they were approved to get into the very first stage by the MSBA. At this point in time, we're unfortunately in the uncomfortable position of not having any basic information. As the people on this committee know very, very well, it takes a very long time to get to a number.
But at least we know it's not a renovation. It says in the letter, replace existing structure. So it's a tear down.
Although, in conversations with them, that's kind of an overstatement, because what they have said to me is, we have to evaluate everything with the MSBA. We have to evaluate renovation, we have to evaluate, they have to go through the whole process. That may be their preferred option, but they have to go through the whole process. As folks are aware, who kind of pay attention, techs have been struggling over the techs that have tried to do this over the last few years have struggled. So I know that the Shawsheen tech is aware of that and is going to try to take steps to make sure that they have a more successful process than others have had. The formula for assessment when it comes to a town, it has to do with the total student enrollment of the town at the time of the assessment. And so that's not something we're gonna be able to nail down unless they get much further along in the process.
It's not a town meeting, it's not a question of the ballot box, it's an assessment, it's a bill that we get in the mail.
Oh, it's definitely gonna be an assessment and a ballot box, absolutely.
So if they move forward with the project, we have to vote on it here.
Correct.
All member towns have to vote.
All
on it.
member towns have to vote.
And I believe it's 3 out of 5?
It's a majority.
It's a majority, so
Yeah.
you could have 2 towns vote against it. It will still pass.
And now the information, so this is obviously relatively new, and so I've been working on the budget, I haven't had a chance to delve into this as much as I will. But so it's not 100% clear to me, how our current enrollment at Shawsheen affects that assessment and how, and how the kind of the town vote in the specific agreement is laid out, because there's the intertown agreement for Shawsheen. The reality is, I would anticipate there being, this is something we're talking about, in 3 or 4 years. It's possible, as you guys are aware, to move faster than that if they get aggressive, but that's not the impression I've gotten from them. That I think they're looking to methodically, because I think they've got a lot of work to do to build up support for it.
I bring this up only that we have to be mindful as we strategize going into town meeting and getting to the ballot box here. This is something that people are going to be considering along with everything else that's going on financially in this town. So we need to be prepared to answer those questions, and as much information as we can get between now and then, I think it's going to be super helpful for us to be able to have answers for residents.
So I appreciate you bringing it up. It's certainly been on my mind since it happened, and it's one of the things that I've been trying to strategize.
So the one thing that I can tell you is that Shawsheen moved into the eligibility phase for the MSBA in December. That process, getting from there into feasibility, is typically a year. So you may not have a lot of information when we go to vote, because they won't have moved forward.
That doesn't mean people aren't going to ask the question.
They probably will, and we need to be able to craft, how we can respond.
Yeah.
But I just wanted everyone to be aware of the duration. I know we've done it here, but it's sometimes you're 2 years in and you forget how long it took to get there, so.
Thank you.
The other comment I would just add, and I don't want to get ahead of the manager, but in addition to just that question, I just want to put people's mind at ease that the town manager, in consultation with all town staff and administration, is talking about the future plans of Wilmington overall. So whether it's another school at Shawsheen or other endeavors that have been brought up about, fire substation is one that's been talked about, just to stop it at that. The manager is certainly looking at the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, even 50 years out at this point. So certainly I'm not going to offer any more comments on that communication, but it's not just about Shawsheen. It's looking at Wilmington as a whole and the direction of the community. There's a lot of effort being put into that as well. So we hear that loud and clear. We've had some constituent emails to that effect. And we know through other prior meetings, even prior to Eric joining as our town manager, that people want to know how these puzzle pieces fit into the overall, the picture of what 01887 is going to look like now and moving forward. And he certainly has that visionary mindset, and I see that every day.
Mr. Okay, public comments.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Haley Stewart. I live at 136 Middlesex, so I am a stone's throw away from here. I have a 4 and a 6-year-old, so maybe my youngest might get a 5th grade year in this school if everything goes to plan. But regardless of that, I am a huge proponent of this project and this work, and actually came today more to ask a couple questions around public relations and community outreach, because as someone with like my finger on the pulse of some like comments and they're going around town, I am concerned about this passing, particularly with people who don't have kids. But before that, I was thrilled to join this meeting because to see those, not only to see the designs, the initial concepts, but also to hear the feedback too. Because not only am I a parent of young kids, I am also a designer, and my backyard looks out onto the new town hall. So I have thoughts on that town hall building that I will look at for the next 40 years. Because I know I am the newer generation. I've only lived here for 7 years. I know a lot of you have lived here for a lot longer than that, but I am here in one of our oldest homes in town and have over the last 7 years revitalized that house that is such a cornerstone that's on the original Wilmington maps. So I deeply care about this town, and I deeply take pride in the buildings that we are putting into the town. So on the designs, I was thrilled to see those designs. I love the uniqueness in them. I deeply love the wood in there. And I will say that as I hear the commentary, we're not the first person to put wood on the exterior of a building. There are ways to maintain that finish. I'm also a woodworker, so I have that knowledge as well. Concern around etching and carving into, it can be steel on the way up or another material on the way up. And so wood can be out of reach of being able to etch into it. So there are ways to bring wood into this building. I was so excited about the inspiration imagery. I thought it was beautiful. I think we talk a lot about the buildings that have been built recently or are being built, being the high school and the town hall, but I don't want us to forget about the other building that is currently being built, which is the senior center. Yes, not a school, but I'm actually so proud of that building because it is unique, it is different, it is beautiful, and there's wood in that. So if you haven't seen that, go see that building because they brought wood into the exterior of that in a beautiful way. I think every time I pass that, I'm so proud of that versus a standard high school and versus a standard office building. I remember pushing for, we're in the historic part of town. I was pushing the town hall to be more historic, bring in more of those details of the history. And the pushback was, remember, this is an office building. And I was like, great. So I encourage us to think creatively and don't just like poo-poo a material because it doesn't look like what these two buildings look like. So I love the wood. I love that. I love what y'all are doing. I know it will continue to evolve and iterate from what we've seen today. I know this is just a first pass, but please know that so someone of the next generation in this town is very excited to see a building that has a uniqueness to it, while also paying homage to the current town. I think my one comment was like, definitely agree on the green. People would have comments of that, like, that's not a school color. I do not think you can just replace that with the navy or our blue. I would actually encourage us, because I know that won't look good, but I do encourage us to bring some color into those exteriors, because I love the playfulness of what you're doing with the green. Can there be more color? I think I was most disappointed to hear a comment of, we're building an elementary school, and one of the words used to describe it was muted. We don't need to be an explosion of color, but I would never associate muted with an elementary school. That is not what these kids need. That's not what their brains need. That's not what's stimulating to them. It's not what's creative and beautiful. So I would encourage us to think a little bit differently about this building. So I am thrilled to see the work that y'all are doing, and I just keep that in the back of your mind. So I know we've got people not looking at me when I'm talking, but please keep that in the back of your minds as you continue, because I am not a committee member, so my voice is not heard at the same strength as you all. So that is just sharing my perspective of that. Yes, lots of outdoor learning nooks. Love this. Love the wood. Green question marks. Muted. Let's not do muted. that was my commentary on the design, so thank you for letting me to be part of this meeting. The questions that I came in with, was curious, so knowing now that September 13th and 16th, those are our important dates, 1 for our town meeting, 2 for voting. I'm curious with that town meeting, you said it's gonna happen here at the high school, so I'm assuming in the auditorium like it has before. I only asked to think hard about that, so I was at the December 7th, so I believe it's December 6th or 7th, December 7th town, like special town meeting, as one of the only like few parents that brought their kids, sat through that 3-hour meeting, a 4 and a 6-year-old gave them coloring books. I mean, they did fantastic. But this is a meeting that we have to have parents at, and I do not know if that is the right space to have parents be able to bring their kids, because we have to. We can't all get babysitters or have someone watch. So we need a space that we can bring our kids, and we need a space that accommodates that. So we have as many parent voices that can come, because that is vital, vital, vital. And I'm so glad though, that we're not voting there, and we are voting by ballot, because that was gonna be my big concern, because that December 7th meeting did not represent the town of Wilmington. That who was in that room was not representative of Wilmington.
Can I answer real quick on it? I
Yeah.
don't generally like to do this as a public comment, but I did want to say that for the December 7th meeting, there was childcare that was put out and promoted by the school system, and we didn't have enough people sign up to take advantage of it.
I'm a parent that didn't see it.
But I would say, we're gonna encourage that to happen and get promoted better for
Okay.
the September meeting.
Good, because we want parents. I mean, and Saturdays are so hard. All of our activities happen on Saturday morning. So it's just like whatever we can do to get parents in that room is so vital. And then I'm just curious of what other outreach is happening to help dissuade the biggest concern that I'm hearing, not only is sort of like what's happening on sort of my side of town, but also just like is the weight of the tax burden being a big reason why folks are going to vote it down. So I am one, asking what else is happening, and 2, what can I do? How can I help? Put me out there. I am a huge proponent of this project. I would love to help the boots on the ground to get this thing to
I can take that, and then their work is not started officially yet, but will soon be and underway to try and reach out to our parent groups and broader community around organizing support networks and infrastructure, if you will, around trying to advance the information around the project and spread the word and hopefully spread the support. So I would suggest to you just stay tuned. There's actually a meeting that will be set up to start those conversations and planning for that. I think it's next week or soon will be. So please stay tuned for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. I don't know, I've seen you just everywhere with it, and I love that. See like your face at every event. So just like, yeah, put me to work. I'm more than happy to like
Sign you up.
help. Yeah, help
And
you.
thank you for sitting in tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate, this was great. This is awesome to get to see and hear the feedback, so.
Appreciate that. Next meeting is Wednesday, January 29th. Again, as mentioned earlier, we are going to change locations to the North Intermediate School, 7 o'clock. We'll make sure that messaging goes out, 6 o'clock for the meeting for the abutters. And with that, unless there's anything else, looking for a motion to adjourn tonight.
So moved.
Second. A motion second, roll call, please.
Diane Allen,
Yes.
Glenn Brand,
Yes.
Michael Camosio,
Yes.
Justin Couche,
Yes.
Mary Ann Galezzo.
He's left the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Nicholas Golden,
Yes.
Christine Holleran,
Yes.
Dennis Kelly,
Yeah.
Paul Millerani,
Yes.
Craig Minor,
Yes.
Judy O'Connell,
Yes.
Christine Pendergast,
Yes.
David Ragsdale,
Yes.
Paul Ruggiero,
Yes.
Stacy Scott,
Yes.
Eric Schlegel.
Yes.
And before I say yes and we adjourn, I did send out the email to the committee of the flyers. So please look for that in your email. And with that, yes. And thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Right.